I never thought I'd be sitting in my own workshop, staring at legal documents that were designed to steal everything I'd worked 30 years to build. But there I was, last Tuesday evening, with a stack of papers in front of me that would have made me homeless in my own house. The same workbench where I taught my daughter to measure twice and cut once was now covered with the most sophisticated fraud attempt I'd seen in 3 decades of investigating insurance scams. My name is Michael Patterson, and I'm 57 years old. Until 8 months ago, I spent 30 years investigating insurance fraud for Consolidated Risk Management. I've seen every scam, every trick, every way people try to cheat the system. Fake slip minus and minus falls, staged car accidents, arson for profit, medical billing fraud minus you name it. I've investigated it. The company used to joke that I had a sixth sense for spotting lies. Truth is, after 30 years of reading people and documents, you develop an instinct for when something doesn't add up. I retired early after my doctor told me the stress was killing me literally. High blood pressure, bad knees from an old construction accident, and honestly, I was ready to slow down. My wife Sarah died 4 years ago from cancer, and I figured it was time to enjoy the house we built together with our own hands. This house means everything to me. Sarah and I designed every room, ran every wire, laid every piece of flooring. I still remember the summer of 1995 when we framed the whole thing ourselves, working weekends and evenings after my regular job. Sarah would hold the boards while I hammered, both of us dreaming about the life we'd build inside these walls. When Jessica was in high school, I taught her how to use every tool in my workshop. Always respect your tools, I tell her, and they'll serve you well. She learned to cut crown molding, wire light switches, even helped me tile the master bathroom before she left for college. My daughter Jessica is 32nd. She's a real estate agent, married to Tyler Martinez, a construction worker who's been out of work for 6 months. They've got 2 kids, Ashley, who's 8, and Ryan, who's 6. I love those grandkids more than anything in this world. Every other weekend, they come over and I teach them the same things I taught their mother. Last month, Ashley helped me rebuild the engine on my old lawnmower. Ryan's too young for power tools, but he loves organizing my toolbox and learning the names of everything. I thought Jessica and I had a solid relationship. That's what made this whole thing hurt so much worse. It started about 3 weeks ago. Jessica called me on a Wednesday afternoon, sounding concerned. In my line of work, you learn to listen not just to what people say, but how they say it. Her voice had that rehearsed quality I'd heard 1,000 times from insurance claimants trying to sound sincere. Hey Dad, how are you feeling today? I'm fine, sweetheart. Why? I don't know. You just seemed a little tired when we came by on Sunday. Are you sure you're managing okay in that big house? Red flag number 1. In fraud investigation, we call this priming the pump minus establishing a narrative that the victim is vulnerable or confused. I've seen adult children use this tactic on elderly parents hundreds of times. I looked around my kitchen. Sarah and I designed this place ourselves. Built it from the ground up when Jessica was in high school. Every board, every wire, every pipe minus I knew where it all went because I put it there. Jessica, I'm perfectly fine. I run 2 miles every morning and I can still bench press more than Tyler. She laughed, but it sounded forced. Dad, you don't have to prove anything to anyone. Mom's been gone for years now. Don't you think it might be time to consider something smaller, more manageable? This house isn't managing me. Honey, I'm managing it just fine. Of course you are. I just worry, you know. We all do. There was that word again minus we. Red flag number 2. When someone starts speaking for a group instead of themselves, they're usually trying to add weight to their argument. It's a manipulation tactic. The calls kept coming over the next 2 weeks. Always the same theme. Was I feeling overwhelmed? Was I keeping up with the bills? Had I been confused about anything lately? Wouldn't it be easier if someone helped me manage things? Maybe I should think about giving them power of attorney, just in case something happened. Each conversation followed the same pattern I'd seen in financial elder abuse cases. First, Plant doubt about the victim's competence. Second, offer to help with increasingly important decisions. Third, gain legal control through documentation. It's textbook stuff, and I'd written reports on dozens of cases just like this. But this was my daughter. The little girl I taught to use a circular saw when she was 12. The kid I worked double shifts to put through college after Sarah got sick. I wanted to believe she was just concerned about her old man. On the fourth call, I decided to test my theory. Jessica, you keep asking if I'm managing my finances okay. Why don't you tell me what you think I should be doing differently? Long pause. Well, Dad, maybe someone should help you organize your important papers. Make sure everything is in order. What kind of papers? You know, insurance documents, bank statements, your will. It would just give us peace of mind to know where everything is. Classic financial predator behavior. They always want to know where the assets are located before they make their move. After I hung up, I walked out to my workshop and sat at the bench where I'd spent countless hours teaching Jessica carpentry. Where she'd learned it to sandwood properly, where she'd helped me make Sarah's jewelry box for our 20th anniversary. The same bench where I consoled her after her first heartbreak, where we talked about her dreams of becoming successful in real estate. Now I was sitting here wondering if my own daughter was planning to rob me. That night, I pulled out my old case files from the storage room. 30 years of fraud investigations don't just disappear when you retire minus the patterns. The warning signs, the methodologies become part of your DNA. I spread the files across my workbench like I used to do in my office, looking for similar cases. There it was. Case file 2847 from 2019. Adult daughter convincing 68-year-old mother to sign over power of attorney for protection. Started with concerned phone calls about mom's health and ability to manage finances. Escalated to pressure about legal documents. Ended with the daughter draining $340. Thorough from savings accounts and selling the family home out from under her mother. The parallels were impossible to ignore. I opened my laptop minus, the same one I'd used for investigations minus, and started what we call preliminary asset research. First stop county records to check Tyler and Jessica's mortgage situation. Public records don't lie. And what I found made my blood run cold. They were 3 months behind on their mortgage payments. The house Tyler had been so proud of when they bought it was headed for foreclosure in 60 days. Their credit cards were maxed out. Tyler's construction company had filed for bankruptcy 8 months ago, right around the time he got laid off. But there was more. Using techniques I'd learned for tracking insurance fraudsters, I checked Tyler's social media accounts. Nothing recent about job hunting or financial stress, but plenty of photos from Las Vegas trips and expensive restaurants as recently as 2 months ago. Either they were living on credit cards, or Tyler had income he wasn't reporting. I made a few calls to former colleagues still working in the field. When you spend 30 years building relationships with investigators, attorneys, and law enforcement, those contacts don't disappear just because you retire. Hey Mike, it's Rodriguez from Metro PD Financial Crimes. You got a minute? Detective Carlos Rodriguez owed me about a dozen favors from cases where my insurance investigations had uncovered criminal activity. Carlos, I need a favor. Can you run a quick background check on Tyler Martinez, age 34, address 1247 Oak Street? 20 minutes later, my phone rang. Mike, your guy's got problems. 3 arrests for illegal gambling in the past 18 months, all charges dropped. But here's the interesting part minus, he owes serious money to a bookie named Danny Torino. Word on the street is $18,000, and Torino doesn't offer payment plans. Now it all made sense. Tyler wasn't just unemployed minus, he was in debt to people who break legs when you don't pay. Jessica wasn't just worried about my finances minus, she was desperate for a quick solution to a very dangerous problem. I spent the next 2 days doing what I'd done for 30 years, building the case. I documented every phone call, every conversation, every suspicious question. I researched the lawyer whose name Jessica had mentioned minus. Turns out he specialized in asset protection and had been sanctioned twice by the state bar for questionable practices. This wasn't just family concern. This was a well-planned financial crime. Then came last Friday, Jessica called and invited herself over for dinner. Just the two of us, she said. Dad, I miss our talks. The way she said it reminded me of insurance claimants trying to sound innocent while filing fraudulent claims. I made her favorite minus barbecue ribs with my secret sauce recipe. The same meal I'd made for her birthday every year since she was 5th. She arrived at 6:30. With a leather briefcase tucked under her arm. My stomach dropped when I saw that briefcase. But I smiled and let her in. During my career, I'd learned to control my reactions, to let suspects think they were in control while I gathered evidence. Tonight would be no different. We ate dinner at my kitchen table, but my mind was in investigator mode. Every word, every gesture, every pause was being cataloged and analyzed. She asked about my health, my finances, whether I'd been feeling confused about anything lately. Confused about what, Jessica? Oh, just managing everything. The insurance paperwork after Mom died, keeping track of all the investments, the house maintenance. It's a lot for one person. More priming, making me doubt my own competence. Jessica, I managed investigations involving millions of dollars for 30 years. I think I can handle my own checkbook. She laughed nervously. Of course, Dad. I just worry sometimes. After dinner, she suggested we move to the living room. But I had a better idea. Why don't we go out to my workshop? I want to show you the rocking chair I'm building for Ashley. In my workshop, surrounded by tools and the scent of sawdust, I felt more in control. This was my domain, the place where I taught her everything she knew about working with her hands. If she was going to try to steal my life savings, she'd have to do it here, in the place where I tried to teach her right from wrong. The briefcase came out. Dad, I've been thinking a lot about your future. Tyler and I want to make sure you're protected. Protected from what? From unexpected situations, medical emergencies, financial confusion. At your age, things can change quickly. I was 57, not 87, but I let her talk. I had a lawyer draw up some papers. Power of attorney, healthcare proxy, and there's a section about putting your house into a family trust. A family trust. Just for protection, Dad. You'd still live here, but legally it would make things easier if something happened to you. My name would be on it, so there's no confusion down the road. I stared at her across the workbench where I'd taught her to respect other people's property, where I'd shown her how to measure carefully before making any cuts, because mistakes in woodworking are permanent. Now she was asking me to sign away everything I'd measured and cut and built over 30 years. I need to think about this, Jessica. Her face changed. The mask slipped, and for a moment I saw something I'd seen in the faces of insurance scammers when their schemes started falling apart. There's nothing to think about, Dad. This is for your own good. I'm trying to help you. Why are you being so difficult? Those exact words. I'd heard them verbatim in depositions, in recorded phone calls and interrogation rooms. It's what predators say when their victims start asking questions. My daughter didn't know I was a fraud investigator minus part 3, that's when I knew for sure. In 30 years of fraud investigation, I'd heard those exact words 100 times. This is for your own good. Why are you being so difficult? It's what can artists say when their mark starts asking questions. The fact that my own daughter was using textbook manipulation tactics on me was like being punched in the gut with a sledgehammer. I stood up from my workbench, walked over to my tool cabinet, and pulled out a magnifying glass and a high-intensity LED work light. Jessica watched me with growing confusion as I set up what looked like a crime scene investigation station. What are you doing, Dad? I'm going to read these papers. Really read them. The way I've read thousands of fraudulent documents over the past 30 years. Her face went pale. You don't trust me, Jessica? In my line of work, we had a saying, trust, but verify. Reagan used to say that about the Russians, but it applies to anyone asking you to sign legal documents. I put on my reading glasses and started going through the papers under the bright light, the way I used to examine suspicious insurance claims. Page by page, paragraph by paragraph, clause by clause. Jessica sat across from me, fidgeting with her phone, probably texting Tyler updates on how the scam was going. These documents were a masterclass in legal manipulation, more sophisticated than anything I'd seen in insurance fraud cases. Someone had paid good money to have these drafted. The first document looked like standard power of attorney paperwork, but the devil was in the details. Jessica, this power of attorney document says effective immediately upon execution. That means you'd have control of my bank accounts the moment I sign this. Not just in case of an emergency, mine is starting right now. Well, yes, but only to help you manage things better. I highlighted the clause with a yellow marker, the same way I used to mark evidence in case files. And this section here gives you authority to make all financial decisions, including, but not limited to, liquidating assets, closing accounts, and transferring funds. That's not management, Jessica. That's complete control. She shifted uncomfortably. Dad, you're reading too much into the legal language. Am I? I moved to the healthcare proxy document. This healthcare directive includes language allowing you to make medical decisions, even if I'm mentally competent and disagree with your choices. Look right here, minus. Healthcare decisions may be made by the designated proxy when deemed in the best interests of the principal, regardless of the principal's stated preferences. That's just standard language. No, it's not. A standard healthcare proxy only kicks in when you're unconscious or declared incompetent by multiple physicians. This gives you the power to override my medical decisions anytime you think you know better. But the trust document, minus, that was the real masterpiece of fraud. I spread it across the workbench and began reading aloud. Property ownership hereby transfers in full to Jessica Patterson minus Martinez, with the original owner retaining residency rights at the discretion of the new legal owner. I looked up at her. Jessica, this doesn't put your name on my house for safety. This gives you my house, completely. And this clause here says I can live in it, at your discretion. You could evict me tomorrow. We would never do that. Then why is it in the document? She opened her mouth to answer, then closed it. Her phone buzzed with a text message. Probably Tyler asking why it was taking so long. I kept reading. The trust document also included provisions for asset optimization that would allow Jessica to mortgage the house, sell it, or use it as collateral for loans. There was even a clause allowing her to change the terms of the trust without my knowledge or consent. Jessica, if I sign these papers, you will own my house, control my bank accounts, and have the legal authority to put me in a nursing home against my will. You could sell everything I've worked for and there would be nothing I could do about it. Dad, you're being paranoid. I'm being a fraud investigator. This is exactly what financial elder abuse looks like. I've seen these same tactics used on dozens of victims. Victims? Her voice rose. I'm your daughter, not some scammer. Then explain to me why these documents are written this way. Explain to me why you need complete control over my life instead of just helping me organize my paperwork. She couldn't. Because there was no innocent explanation for documents this aggressive and one minus cited. I pulled out my phone and opened the voice recording app minus, another habit from my investigation days. Jessica, I need you to explain, on record, exactly what would happen if I signed these papers. Turn that off. Answer the question. What would happen to my house if I signed this trust document? Dad, turn off the phone. What would happen to my savings accounts if I signed the power of attorney? She stood up abruptly, grabbing for the briefcase. We're done here. You're clearly not thinking straight. This is exactly why we need these protections in place minus you're paranoid and confused. Get out of my house. Dad minus GETOUT. She grabbed the papers and stormed toward the door. But before leaving, she turned around with a look I'd never seen on her face before minus scold, calculating, and mean. Fine. You know what? You want to be alone in this house? But don't come crying to us when you can't manage anymore. Don't expect us to help you when you're old and confused and can't remember where you put your medication. Jessica, I'm 57 years old. I run 2 miles every morning and I can bench press 200 pounds. I am not old and confused. You will be. And when you are, don't expect us to be there. She walked out. I heard their car doors slam, heard them drive away. I sat in my workshop for a long time, surrounded by tools and projects and memories of teaching her everything she knew about working with her hands. The same hands she just tried to use to steal everything I'd worked for. Then, I got back to work. The first thing I did was secure the evidence. I photographed every page of every document she'd left behind in her hurry to leave. I made copies using my old scanner and stored them in my fireproof safe. The same place I kept Sarah's jewelry and our important papers. Next, I called my old boss at Consolidated Risk Management. Steve Martinez had been my supervisor for 15 years and we'd worked hundreds of fraud cases together. If anyone would understand what I was dealing with, it was Steve. Mike, how's retirement treating you? Steve, I need a favor. I'm dealing with a family situation that looks a lot like the elder abuse cases we used to investigate. Your own family? My daughter and son minus law. They just tried to get me to sign papers that would have given them complete control over my assets and property. Long pause. Mike, you sure about this? Family dynamics can be complicated. Steve, I photographed the documents. This isn't family dynamics minus, it's financial fraud. The power of attorney has immediate effect clauses. The healthcare proxy overrides patient autonomy, and the trust document transfers full property ownership. They were trying to execute a complete asset grab. Jesus, Mike. What do you need? I need a comprehensive financial background check on Tyler Martinez, and I need the name of the best estate attorney in town minus someone who specializes in protecting assets from family predators. I'll have the background report by morning. And Mike? Michelle Davis handles estate protection for fraud victims. She's seen cases like this before. By midnight, I had a plan. By morning, I'd have the ammunition to protect myself and maybe save other families from going through what Jessica had just put me through. Because here's the thing about being a fraud investigator minus, you don't just learn how to catch criminals, you learn how to fight back. My daughter didn't know I was a fraud investigator minus Spart for the next morning. Steve Martinez called me at 7 a.m. with Tyler's complete financial profile. It was worse than I'd imagined. Mike, your son minus and minus law is in serious trouble. He owes $18,000 to Danny Torino minus. That's organized crime territory. But here's the interesting part. Jessica's real estate license is about to be suspended for failure to complete continuing education requirements. She hasn't sold a house in for months. So they were both desperate. No income, mounting debts, and loan sharks breathing down their necks. My house and savings account weren't just attractive targets minus, they were Jessica and Tyler's only hope of survival. At 9 a.m., I met with Michelle Davis in her law office downtown. I brought copies of all the fraudulent documents, plus my investigation notes and the financial background report on Tyler. Michelle had handled hundreds of elder abuse cases, and her reaction told me everything I needed to know. Michael, this is one of the most sophisticated financial exploitation attempts I've ever seen. If you'd signed these papers, your daughter would have been able to drain your accounts, sell your house, and put you in a facility without your consent. We're talking about a complete life takeover. What's my next move? First, we protect your assets immediately. New accounts they don't know about, fraud alerts on everything, proper legal documents that actually protect you instead of handing over control. Then we decide whether you ought to press criminal charges. I thought about little Ashley organizing my toolbox, about Ryan helping me change the oil in my truck. Not yet on the criminal charges, but I want ironclad protection. By that afternoon, I'd moved my assets into new accounts at a different bank. I changed my locks minus, installed deadbolts into security system with cameras covering all entrances. Old habits from investigating suspicious insurance claims had taught me the importance of documentation and security. I updated my will, leaving everything to Ashley and Ryan through a trust they couldn't access until they turned 25, managed by an independent trustee. Jessica and Tyler wouldn't see a penny. Then I waited. Jessica called 3 days later, her voice dripping with fake concern. Dad, I'm sorry about the other night. I got frustrated. Can we talk? Sure. Come over for dinner Saturday. Bring the kids. Really? You're not still angry? We'll talk Saturday. That Saturday, I made spaghetti and meatballs minus the kid's favorite. I set up my workshop with a small table and chairs for Ashley and Ryan to work on a birdhouse project while the adults talked. When Jessica and Tyler arrived, I could see the stress on their faces. Tyler had lost weight, and Jessica looked like she hadn't slept in days. After dinner, we moved to my workshop. Ashley and Ryan were happily sanding pieces of pine wood for their birdhouse. Jessica and Tyler sat across from me at my main workbench, probably thinking they were about to close the biggest deal of their lives. Dad, Jessica said carefully, have you thought more about those papers? I have. And I've decided you were absolutely right. I needed to get my affairs in order. Her face lit up like Christmas morning. Really? Really? I met with an estate attorney. I set up proper legal protections, updated my will, arranged everything exactly the way it should be arranged. Tyler leaned forward eagerly. So, you signed the documents? I signed documents. Just not yours. The workshop went quiet except for the sound of Ashley and Ryan giggling over their birdhouse project. What do you mean? Jessica's voice had an edge to it. I opened a folder and spread out the real legal documents Michelle Davis had prepared. I mean, I set up actual asset protection minus not the asset transfer scam you tried to pull on me. Dad, I don't understand. You understand perfectly, Jessica. You brought me documents that would have given you complete control over my life. You lied about what they said. You pressured me to sign them using manipulation tactics I've seen 1,000 times in financial fraud cases. Tyler's face went red. Financial fraud? Are you out of your mind? I'm a fraud investigator, Tyler. For 30 years, I've specialized in catching people who steal other people's money. Did you really think I wouldn't recognize what you were trying to do? Jessica stood up. We were trying to help you. No, Jessica. You were trying to steal from me because Tyler owes $0 to a bookie and you're about to lose your real estate license. The blood drained from both their faces. In my investigation career, I'd seen that exact reaction hundreds of times minus the moment suspects realize their target knows everything. How did you minus Tyler started? How did I know? I'm a professional investigator. I ran background checks. I documented everything. I have copies of all the fraudulent papers you tried to get me to sign, plus evidence of your financial situation and Tyler's gambling debts. Jessica's voice shook. You investigated us? Your own family? I protected myself from people trying to rob me. The fact that you're my family makes it worse. Not better. I stood up and walked to my tool cabinet, pulling out a thick folder. Here's what's going to happen. I've removed your name from all my accounts. I've updated my will. You will not inherit this house or my savings. Everything goes into a trust for Ashley and Ryan. You're cutting us out? Tyler's voice cracked. You cut yourselves out when you tried to steal from me. Jessica grabbed her purse. Fine. You want to die alone in this house? You've got it. Don't call us when you need help. Actually, Jessica, if you or Tyler come near my property again, or try any more legal maneuvers to gain control of my affairs, I'll file criminal charges for attempted financial exploitation of a senior citizen. The evidence is already documented and stored in multiple locations. They gathered up Ashley and Ryan and left without another word. That was 3 weeks ago. Since then, I've started volunteering at the senior center, teaching financial literacy classes twice a week. How to spot scams, how to protect yourself, how to know when someone is trying to take advantage of you. Turns out my story isn't unique. There are a lot of older folks getting pressured by their own families, and my investigation experience helps them understand what to look for. I've also been consulting part-minus time with Michelle Davis's law firm, helping other fraud investigators recognize financial elder abuse patterns. It feels good to use my skills to protect people instead of just investigating crimes after they happen. The house feels different now, and not empty. I'm planning a trip to Colorado next spring minus something Sarah and I always talked about doing. I'm teaching woodworking classes at the community college. Last week, I helped my neighbor install a new deck, And he paid me in homemade wine and friendship. Next month, I'm flying to visit my brother in Phoenix. First vacation I've taken since Sarah died. Ashley's 9th birthday was last week. I sent her a small toolbox with her name engraved on it, filled with child-safe woodworking tools. I don't know if Jessica gave it to her, but I hope she did. I hope someday Ashley will understand that protecting yourself isn't mean or selfish, it's necessary. I'm 57 years old. I run 2 miles every morning through neighborhoods I helped wire and plumb decades ago. I built this house with my own hands, and I'll live in it on my own terms. I am not a victim. I'm not confused. I'm just a father who read the fine print and shows dignity over manipulation. And that, as it turns out, has to be enough. But honestly, it's more than enough. It's freedom. 30 years of catching criminals taught me that the most dangerous predators are often the ones who call you family minus, because they know exactly which heartstring to pull. The best investment I ever made wasn't in stocks or bonds minus. It was in learning to read the fine print, especially when it's written by people who claim to love you.